let's get the show on the road. Okay, so this is a Death Zone weapon guide. If you want to listen in right now, you can go in anytime, blah blah blah. And this is going to help you a lot with the main weapons, the guns of Death Zone, because everybody is picking guns by the most specific stats that don't actually match to your setup and everything. I'm going to teach you how to create the best setups in this one, and in the future I'll probably help you with different things like combat tactics and tactics, base rating, whatever you can think of, because this game requires skill, and I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. As a beginner, or as an experienced player, anything you need to know, from my experience and everybody else's. So, let's start with the secondaries. So, all the weapons, there are 5 secondaries. I'm going to go from worst to best. So, the first one, the worst secondary is the P90. Now, first of all, the P90 may seem good at first. The P90 is complete garbage. I know a lot of people say that the P90 is great. It's an SMG in a secondary, but the problem is that the P90 does like half the damage of the Beretta, so it takes like around 2 times more shots. And I know it has like the 50 round magazine, but the 50 round capacity it makes no sense as to the damage, because you're going to end up wasting more shots. You're gonna end up using 2 times more shots, as is compared to you using the Beretta, which is much more powerful. And the P90 is generally it's hard to find ammo for it. It's inefficient with doing a lot of damage. It's not a good weapon altogether, you know. So let's move up a bit. So the next one is the M1911. This is the first pistol you get in the game when you spawn in, and you can also find the pistol around in the civilian areas. And the M1911 is actually not bad of a weapon, but it's not as good as the other ones either. The thing you want to watch out for is how the M1911 has only 7 shots, and you often will need more than 7 shots to take down an enemy, because you always have to assume that you're going to miss some shots every time you have your weapon. You're going to always miss some shots when you get into the fight. So you want to always have more ammo than you actually need. And next up is the Beretta. The Beretta, or the M9, is one of the great good weapons, but it's not the best. The M9 is like it's the AEK 971, but as a secondary. It does like pretty much the same damage, and so on and so forth. It's a very balanced secondary. It has a good capacity, but it's a little bit slow. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And I do recommend this weapon if you want to use it as a quick draw secondary, or you want to like duel it with the AUG, so you can shoot 1 shot and then switch to your secondary and then pop. That's a good way to use a Beretta, and in other ways, usually by just normally using it as a secondary, it works as well. Next up is the Deagle. Now the Deagle usually would be the best secondary, but the Deagle is actually worse than the Magnum. Now, the Deagle has 7 shots, just like the M1911, but it does the most damage out of all the secondaries. The problem is, it doesn't actually make a big difference when you have an armored enemy, and people also forget that you don't want to use your secondary that often. Your secondary is a secondary, and it's not as powerful as the normal primary. So, the Deagle is overall like a good shooter, and sometimes you do want to use it more often because it does have range qualities. It is good for shooting at range. The one just bad thing about it is that you can't suppress it, and you can hear the shot very distinctly. You can hear it, and you know this is the sound of a Deagle. But other weapons, the M1911, Beretta, all of them can be suppressed, and suppressed weapons, if you don't know, are very, very quiet. So the Deagle can't be suppressed, and that's kind of a bad thing. You don't want to be hurt all the time. Now the last one of the secondaries is the Magnum. The Magnum is 6 rounds, but it does more RPM than the Deagle. It has 1 less round, yes, but it also has much more common ammo. You can find it everywhere in civilian areas and in military bases and everything. They're everywhere. It's very common, and it's just as good as the Deagle if you use it correctly. If you aim for the head, you can do a lot of damage. Even though it's less than the Deagle, it's still very effective. I think people should use the Magnum more, because it's very accurate, and, you know, it's pretty much just the same as the Deagle. Now for primaries, this one's gonna be quick, but shotguns, first of all, because shotguns go into a whole other category of primary weapons. I don't want to rush forward that much. So to separate them, the shotguns are pretty much all the same. So it goes H70, MCS, M1014, and then the SPOS-12. And the shotguns are great. I have to tell you, like, the H70 is not good at all, but the SPOS-12, it does, like, the most damage out of all the shotguns, and it's so powerful. People underestimate the shotguns way too much. Way too much. Like, when you're fighting a weaker enemy, like, if you know they're inexperienced, it's just 2 taps. In fact, even 1 tap if they don't have that much armor, because the SPOS-12 is easily just 1-2 dead. Even with, like, someone with Spec Ops armor, you can easily take them out. It's just that easy. The SPOS-12 is, easily one of the best weapons, I'm not gonna lie. And the other shotguns are almost the same, yes. But to sum it all up, the shotguns are actually very underrated. Although they're not good at range, they're very good at close range. Now, let's move on to the rifles and the SMGs and stuff. So the first one, the worst primary that's not a shotgun is a PPSH-41. And a PPSH is, it's terrible. It has way too much recoil, and yes, it has 71 rounds, and yes, it has very high RPM, but it is useless. It is virtually just impossible to use correctly because it has so much recoil. I know a lot of people say that it's very effective, and yes, it is very effective, but it's only good at extremely close range only, because it'll jump up almost immediately, and it almost doesn't calm down, ever. And that's important. You need to have a mobile way of fighting. So, next one, the AUG. So, the AUG, or the AUG A3, it doesn't mention it, but the AUG is the highest recoil assault rifle. I know it's hard to believe, but it has very high recoil, and it can't have underbarrel attachment for some reason. In summary, it's an okay assault rifle, but compared to the other ones that you can find, like, they're much more accessible. You don't need to use the AUG. In fact, it's just a waste. Now, next up is the AS-VAL. The AS-VAL is... It's generally not effective. It doesn't do much damage because it has a 20-round mag and a 30-round mag, but it does less damage than a lot of the other assault rifles. It's generally not that good. So, yeah, that's all. And the next one is the minigun. And yes, the minigun is very rare. It's in the nuclear zone, but it is just terrible. It's more of a melee weapon than a actual rifle because it doesn't make a dent in anything far away. In fact, you're going to miss more shots than you hit most of the time. Unless you're, like, up close and personal, then you have a very good chance of winning the fight. In any other situation, if you are even 10 feet away, you are going to miss a lot of shots, and you're gonna alert them before you can actually kill them. Yes. Next one is the M1 Garand. Now, the M1 Garand was, quite recently added. It was not very recently, but it's one of the new weapons that was added. And the M1 Garand is powerful, yeah. It's like a sniper rifle, but it's not really, because it doesn't do that much damage. It's like a Magnum, but as a primary. It's not going to boasts a high rate of fire, but it can definitely do damage. And beginners should use it. If you find it, pick it up, but if you have anything better, then don't. The M16 is very common in civilian areas, but you cannot find it, like, very easy, sorry, it is easy to use, but it's not as cool as the other assault rifles. It doesn't have anything special about it, and it's usually just a little bit below average of the other assault rifles, but it is very good. It can use the drum mags and everything. It's very worth using. And the AK-74M, a lot of people forget about this, but it's not a bad weapon. It's actually quite good. The AK-74M has very low recoil, but it doesn't do as much damage, and it has to use the 5.45 ammo. I'm gonna say 7.62 because a lot of people say it that way. It's not that great. But again, it's not that bad either. If you put a grip or a drum mag, then it's gonna be a lot better than you think. But again, there are a lot of other choices you can look at. Now, the ACWR is one of the most popular assault rifles in the game, because when this first came out, it was like the GOAT, the greatest of all time. It could do a lot of damage, and again, it used the common 5.56 ammo, and with the drum mags, the grip, and everything, or even the bipod, that bipod works as well. That is great. It's just, it mows down people fast, but again, once people started to play the game more, experienced players started to know that there were a lot better options than this. So, the next one up would be the AWP. Now, the AWP is actually very bad, but it's the only weapon that can do long range, and the versatility is just the only thing that people want to keep it for. Once you put an ACOG scope on it, it's the only way to fight at range, unless you have, like, a Scaro with the bipod, but we'll get to that later. You can't fight at long range with a lot of the weapons, except for, like, the Ammo Garand, or some of the secondaries, like the Deagle. You cannot use any other assault rifle at range, but the AWP is the only weapon that can do that. Although it can never kill in one shot. Let me tell you, it never kills in one shot, ever. I'm serious, it doesn't kill in one shot. Even if you have all the perks, it'll always take 2 shots, but usually it takes like 6, because a lot of people just miss the shots. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of hard to hit shots sometimes, even. It's generally an okay gun, but you can hate it. You can hate on it a lot. With the crappy stuff about it, I would not hate you for hating on the AWP, because it's not good. Now, next up is the M60. The M60 is one of the most annoying guns in the game. Just like, if you've played Phantom Forces, you know how annoying the M60 is. And the M60 in Death Zone is totally annoying as well, because it can use a 100 round belt box thingy. And it's very powerful. It can shoot out rounds as fast as it can. It just has kind of a lot of recoil. But it also can't have under barrel attachments, so you can't actually control it. In other ways, only the perk that allows you to control recoil like that. But it's very annoying when you get killed by one. But it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's really good. It's just, it's hard to deal with and everything. If you're a good player, experienced players should definitely use another weapon other than this. But the M60, in other words, it's not good. Or it's annoying. It's good, but it's not fun. Next, the AEK 971. The AEK actually uses 5.45, but it just uses 7.62 at this point. I don't care. It's really powerful. This was also one of the meta guns besides the ACWR. It did a lot of damage and it shot very fast. The only annoying thing is that it had a lot of recoil, but that's easily remedied with grip and some recoil perks. In other words, it's just powerful. That's all. Until the AK-47 comes around. The AK-47 is the newest gun in Best Film so far, and it is just... It does the most damage out of all of the assault rifles, yes. It shreds. If you... It usually takes around 5 shots. Even with armor, it takes about 5 shots, because if you grab some damage perks, yes, it's just so powerful. If you hit the head, it does a lot of damage as well. But you can't have a grip on it. But you can have a suppressor on it. That's very important as well. Yeah, that's all. The SCAR-L is the best gun in the game. The best. The SCAR-L has no recoil already. Pretty much no recoil. But if you put a bipod and max out your recoil perks, it beams. It's just a beam. If you have your damage perks, yes, it's more powerful. And it's a laser. It's a laser gun. You can refill it easily because you can just go to a civilian area even and find a AR mag and just combine it. Easy. That's just it. It's just the best. Now, the ACOG sight is one of the big things. Like getting into attachments, you want to pick the good attachments. So the ACOG sight is very great, and you want to put it on rifles and stuff. But the ACOG sight, it's terrible at close range. You can't use it at close range. I'm just gonna say it right now. Not useful at all at range. I would recommend using like the CCO sight, and also a very popular sight, but it's also very obstructive. Like it has a very accurate red dot, but the obstruction, since you have like the glass window thing and you don't have a big field of view, I don't use it that much. Now the holographic sight and the reflex, and all the other kinds of sights, you know. I like using the reflex on my AK-47 or SCAR-L, but it's not good at long range. You obviously need range, so that's why I also carry an ACOG sight on me, especially when I want to use my AWP as well. I carry a lot of weapons, so don't question it. But it's not good at long range. But all of them are not obstructive, and that's a good thing too. You want to see what's around you while aiming down sights, pinning down a target, right? That's all really. And also, if you find a mini holographic sight or a delta sight, always put it on your secondary. The revolver iron sights are garbage. The Beretta ones are garbage as well. I'm gonna be honest though. Like, the iron sights in general are garbage. I just recommend getting a sight as soon as you can, because they all kind of suck. Like, if you have the chance to, definitely get a sight for your secondary. And just try to avoid using your secondary altogether, please. The grip? Yes, okay, so how to use the grip in the bipod? The grip is always great from the AK-971. Because since the grip decreases 50% of vertical, you want to use it on weapons with a lot of recoil. But if you have the bipod, you want to use it on stuff like the SCAR-L, because the SCAR-L already has very low recoil, and the 25% decrease in the vertical recoil is already great. If you have the option to use the bipod on like the ACWR and stuff, put it on, because you also want to make the spread, like the spread, physical spread, not the actual spread of the gun. You want to put it closer together, and horizontal recoil is hard to control sometimes. With the bipod, you can cut that in half, and that's when you do want to use a bipod for sure. Same with AWP. You want to decrease horizontal recoil with the AWP as well. If you find a laser, I don't recommend using it, because you can put a laser or or you can put a bipod or grip or anything. But you can also put lasers on your secondaries. Now, on your secondaries, it's recommended to put on a flashlight sometimes, but flashlights, of course, they're kind of useless if you have night vision. But if you don't have night vision or don't want to use night vision, since the night vision looks like two glow sticks hanging in front of your face, and they're not that active, like they're just taking an extra space most of the time, sometimes you want to put a flashlight on your secondary. And again, with the with the flashlight, you can still hold out your gun with the flashlight on it and shoot at the same time. It does attract more attention, but it's very good. So yeah, that's really everything I want to say. It's very important to choose the correct setups for your weapons in Death Zone, because Death Zone is a very competitive PvP shooter. If you have the chance to get something, pick it up. There are so many other things to discover about how to use your weapons and everything, but that's gonna wait for another video. So, yeah, in other words, I'll see you guys later.